What's up, everybody? That was Lil Nas X Holiday recreated on classic vintage analog synths. When I first heard this track, I thought it already had a cool retro vibe, so translating it to vintage analog synths wasn't that much of a stretch. I'm going to take you through step by step on how I recreated this track, but first, if you're not already subscribed, please make sure to hit that subscribe button with notifications so YouTube will let you know when I post new videos. It's a great way to support the channel for free. I really like the beat on Holiday because it's simple and super crispy, so I knew that the TR-606 would be a good fit to recreate that vibe. I started on the 606 with a snare on the 2 and the 4, and then I brought in a closed and open alternating hi-hat pattern, and then the kick with a pattern that's similar to the original song. What you hear on the track in this video is all 606. There's no other drum sounds. All I did was run it through an EQ and a compressor, and that got it sounding pretty nice. The Roland TR-606 is a classic 80s drum machine that's a distant cousin of the 808. But it costs a fraction of the price of a vintage 808 to get your hands on a vintage 606. It's really kind of a sleeper hit. It's super simple to program, you can get some really crisp sounds out of it, and it's also a lot smaller and more portable than the original 808. I love it because it's one of the quickest drum machines for sketching out simple ideas and putting together an entire beat like I did on this song. Now, as for the bass line, the track already kind of has a vintage synth vibe to it, so I found myself reaching immediately for the ARP Instruments 2600. The 2600 is one of the most epic modular synths of all time. It's got a rich history, it's been used by countless artists, and it has a super unique sound. I'm using 2 saw wave oscillators running through the ARP's powerful filter with a lot of the high-end frequency stuff taken out. I'm also using the envelope to control the filter a little bit, and I have a tiny bit of resonance. To give some slide to the notes, I have a little bit of portamento in the low end, and that's pretty much it for the bass. The lead is actually almost the same sound that I used for the bass, but with a little bit more portamento, a little bit more open filter, and a little bit of the built-in spring reverb that's one of my favorite features on the 2600. Another thing that you're going to want to play with is the envelope with sustain and release when you're mimicking the sound of the human voice to get the phrasing right. Next, the Roland SH-101. One of my favorite synths of all time, the SH-101 is one of the ultimate mono synths. It's super simple, it's super easy to program, and it sounds awesome. I'm using a square wave with a long release time and a little bit of slow pitch modulation to give it a little bit of warble for that lead that you hear during the verses. That's got a little bit of reverb on it in the mix, but for the most part, what you hear is what came out of the synth. The next sound is the sub bass. Now, a lot of people will take a pitched 808 sample, but I like to create my sub bass from scratch, and that's exactly what I did. I took the SH-101's filter, I turned the resonance all the way up, the cutoff almost all the way down to tune it, and then I used the keyboard slider on the modulation section of the filter to track the pitch of the keyboard with the filter. It's called self-oscillating. And I used that to create an almost sine tone bass, drop the octave to the sub frequencies, and then in the mix, I ran that through a wave folder to get that nice blown out bass sound. Finally, the Poly 800. Released in the 80s by Korg right before digital took the synthesizer world by storm, the Poly 800 is kind of the red-headed stepchild of Korg polysynths from that era. It doesn't sound particularly great, but it does one thing really, really well. It's got 8 oscillators, but you can double them up in 4 voice mode for a more lush sound. So I'm using that mode. I have the filter cutoff almost all the way down, and I'm using the onboard delay effect to give it a little bit of widening chorus. All in all, I think it creates one of my favorite retro 80s lush pad sounds. And those are all of the sounds that I used to recreate Lil Nas X Holiday. If you have any ideas for future songs that you'd like to see in a video, let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button to be notified when I have new videos. As always, we'll see you next time.